I'm trying to remember to record these because a lot of people want them. All right. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go over in command. Don't forget. Okay, so if you have signatures on a form, what is the real estate commission rule? When should it be put in for compliance review?
For compliance within 48 hours?
Within 48 hours, regardless if you have the whole file ready, if you have signatures, you need to get it in. So I think a lot of people forget that, and then they're like, yeah, it wasn't, but the whole thing wasn't ready, you know?
Actually just found that out today when, you know, I have had the 4T, but I've been waiting for an initial that was missing. So I didn't upload it because I knew it was going to come back, but I still needed it. So.
Yeah. Well, and we had that discussion too. Another fun fact about initials on a contract have no bearing. They have no bearing to the validity of the contract. Now, your lender may say differently, but the real estate commission considers initials just that they read the page. If the client signed the contract, it's a binding contract just because they're missing an initial on the bottom. Now, if it's an initial because something was changed, that's a whole different thing. But if it's just the initial on the bottom of the page, it's not a big deal. So in, let's see if I can make.
So where exactly do we submit the paperwork that's been signed?
In command. So you're in command right here, right? Let me see if I can't make that bigger. That's not command. So when you go into command and you've got the person, right? You've made a contact for them.
Yep.
And you make a opportunity for them.
I did.
Okay. So you're in the opportunity. That's looks like this. Right? So see, it'll look like this. And then over here it says residential consultation under contract or closed. Okay. So you're going to write an offer, you hit under contract, and then this whole list of papers comes up over here. And then you can also, so what we're going to do is look at, okay, here's buyer under contract. That's what BUC is. These are the forms you're going to need. The ones that are in red are required. So your property disclosure statement from the house that you're writing an offer on. Now, there's a couple exceptions of when you wouldn't have that. Do you know what those would be? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller. Lindsay, are you texting it? I see you moving, but I can't see a chat because when I'm sharing the screen, I can't see the chat. So, Aaron, when would you not have a residential property disclosure for your buyer?
Residential property disclosure if it's new construction or if it's bank owned.
Right. And the reason that foreclosure, the reason behind that is there obviously if it's new construction, no one's lived in the house, right? So they can't disclose anything to you. The second one, if it's bank owned, it's a foreclosure. Again, the bank hasn't lived in this house, they don't know. So that is a and then the third one, actually, if their tenants have been living in the house and they don't have to, they'd be the ones who give you the information, so it's not required. So that's kind of a tricky one. All right, and the mineral and gas, same thing?
Not all the time.
All the time.
Well, for all residential.
But, and then there's, Amethyst was telling me that it is not required on lots. Who knows? Makes sense that it would be, you know.
I was told in our launch post licensing class that it is.
Right. So I was
Or
told
no, I'm
that-
sorry, it wasn't post licensing, it was Jenna.
Yeah, right. But there's also, you can also get conflicting, which is very common.
CYOA.
Yeah, so it doesn't hurt to have it because here's the thing. It's useless information all the time. It's always NA or no, 99% of the time. So just know that. So if you have to explain it to your people when you're doing when you are taking a listing, like, have you severed these rights? And they're like, huh? You know, so you say, you know what, there are parts of the country where this is a very big deal. For example, in Wyoming, where my brother lives, you own the house and like 3 inches of the land, but you don't own below it because it's all water rights below it. So, and actually, if you go back to the 70s, Weyerhaeuser owns a lot of the timber rights in Pine Valley. Now they're not using them; they've probably moved on. But if you go back in the deed, you can find that. So, so that's when you would need a mineral gas and why. Okay, so obviously you would need a 2T offer to contract and purpose if you're if you're writing a contract on any home. It could be new construction, or you could use a new construction contract, or you could use a builder's contract. If you use a builder's contract, and some builders will require it, it's your job to read it. And it is very heavily slanted towards the rights of the builder, not the right of your buyer. And they're not going to change anything. Your buyer just needs to know that, you know, like, hey, they're keeping this. This is a non-refundable deposit. This is this, this is this. It is, well, with any contract, you cannot explain things enough. New construction, you need to as well. Like, they need to know that they can't go make changes constantly, and they don't need to be out on the site constantly without you. So.
And no possession of the property.
Absolutely none. Like, I don't know of any builder who will allow it at all. So.
For on the mineral oil and gas, for instance, sometimes we do get some very in-depth questions about things that, questions about mineral and gas rights that I personally don't know.
You wouldn't know, because there's no way for you to know, and you're not expected to know. So you say, listen, if that's a big deal to you, we can explore that further. However, the seller right here is saying they didn't know beforehand, and they haven't severed any.
Yeah.
So in any case, in all cases, just remember that you're pretty much the barometer of the entire deal. If you get upset about something, your client's going to get 10 times more upset about it. If you're like, you're spinning them into a new orbit. So you are being paid to be the professional third party. Don't say we did this and we agreed to that. Unless your name is on that contract, stop saying we, because it does something to your head. It puts you emotionally in the whole deal. It's very hard not to, but if you can just try to check yourself constantly that I'm not part of this deal. I am the professional who was hired to broker the deal. And that's what you're there for, and to give them information, connect them with what they need to get done, and to be very calm. If you're like, what? That's horrible. Your client's calling the real estate commission. Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I had a call from a buyer this morning, and we have the selling side. And apparently the buyer's agent did a couple of really wrong things. Gave him the code, said, go ahead into the house with the fire marshal because she's a foster parent. Go ahead and, check out the house. No. And go ahead and change the electricity into your name. Just use the offer to purchase 2 weeks before closing. No. Go ahead and order your appliances, and you can put them in the house. It'll be fine, I'm sure. No. So none of that was all really bad advice from that buyer's agent. So the buyer actually called our agent, who went ballistic and said, you're breaking the law, you can't do it, got very upset at the buyer. And the buyer's like, calling me saying, look, that's just not the intention. And I'm not going to say anything bad about another agent. I'm like, well, it just sounds to me like who you really need to talk to is the other Vic, not me. Because you've got some not so good advice. So just remember, you can't do any of that, buyer's agents. You cannot, and whatever you do, do not let anybody put anything in the house without a possession before closing agreement. And if they have that, you know, explain to them like 10 times that they're putting that in at their own risk. So.
Another question. He's talking about complaints. Can you probably know which scenario I'm talking about here with an agent that I'm dealing with. Can the opposing, their client make a complaint against you?
They can.
Okay.
Mhm. Well, here's the thing. If a complaint goes to the real estate commission, the commission doesn't care whose side what. They want the entire file from both sides. So we have one right now that we had both sides. The buyer made a complaint. The seller side had to provide the entire file and paper trail as well.
You had the buyer and the seller side,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they could resolve it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was just, it wasn't, it wasn't something really resolvable, you know, it's like, they just wanted to complain.
Yep.
Mhm. Which is very common and easy to do now. Like, you didn't get nearly the real estate commission complaints prior to the internet. But now you can go on the side of the real estate commission and click here and file a complaint, boom. When people had to, you know, figure out on their own what the phone number was, call somebody, talk to them, and then, you know, type a letter, and it was people didn't do it as much. Now it's like click, click. You know, so this particular buyer who called me also called the real estate commission. And that agent who is provisional is in trouble, you know? However, our agent will have to provide the entire file, and a real estate commission envelope that you never want to see will come here and say, there's been a dispute on this property. You've got to give us all your information. So as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, you'll be fine. But if somebody complains, everybody's got to show it. Like we had one here, who I forget what the complaint was about, but they got in trouble because they're working with real estate agent. Brochure was dated after the buyer agency. You know, they had just a slap on the hand, but they're like, how can you have this written when this should have been your first substantial contract and you don't have that date's wrong, you know? The dates don't line up.
So as far as the records they're asking for, is it primarily all of the documents that you would have downloaded, you would have uploaded into command?
Yes.
Or all of the email transactions?
That too.
Okay,
Like,
so
don't delete anything. Because you need to keep a paper trail of your conversations, you know?
so how long are people keeping those communications?
You are required to keep for 3 years from the real estate.
So then you can clean out your browser or whatever after
Mhm,
3 years.
mhm,
Or
mhm.
so.
By real estate commission rule, I'm supposed to keep all of your correspondence as well, but it's just impossible, you know? So I rely on you guys to just keep it yourself. So we had one, I don't know if they filed with the real estate commission. They called me and they're very upset because they closed on their house, but the day before closing, it was new construction. Their big deal was they didn't want an HOA, right? Made this very clear to my agent from the very beginning, don't want an HOA. So the walkthrough before closing, because it's new construction. And by the way, my agent never calls me. Number one complaint, just communicate with your people. You know, so this lady's like all upset. Oh, she never calls me, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we get to the walkthrough and the builder starts telling us about the HOA. Now, we didn't want an HOA. We said our number one thing we didn't want was an HOA. And now, but it was too late, it was at the walkthrough, and we could tell by the way our agent was acting, she knew there was an HOA. And we had to close, and now we're very unhappy because there's an HOA. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, and she has calls, and I'm like, oh, this could be a problem. So call agent. She's like, I explained to them when they went under contract that it was a new subdivision, and they had not decided in the subdivision whether or not there was going to be an HOA. This is very common at the beginning of a subdivision build.
I just
Builders.
assume there will be.
Yeah, builders, yeah, that's the smart thing, is to assume there will be. Because builders are like, I don't know, maybe, maybe not. She said, I explained that to him. I think I have it in a text. I'm like, find it. Well, she didn't. So then I'm like, well, when did you know? And her memory was just as bad as the buyers, because she's like, well, I found out at the walkthrough as well. And I'm like, oh, great, Then she goes back through all the paperwork and finds out that the end of June is when, oh yeah, the builder let us know there's going to be a homeowners association. And I had them sign an addendum that they knew this, and it closed the end of July. But everybody had forgotten this. So my question here is, did you just send it through DocuSign and no one read it? Like, this was only a month. How do your people not know? And so hopefully that didn't go anywhere else. However, this agent wasn't at closing. Big problem. You need to go to closing. That got rescheduled, said she had a conflicting appointment. I don't care what you have, unless it's a medical emergency. You change that appointment and you go to closing. Because had she been at closing and able to talk to everybody and say, oh, look, you have an addendum right here. I guess we all kind of forgot about, do you remember our conversation back in February when we went under contract that this could happen? And then I let you know. All of that had been forgotten. It's July, right? So it's 6 months. Had you been at closing and explaining that to your people, I wouldn't be on the phone with them. Because I pulled up the MLS and I'm like, well, ma'am, I don't see on this MLS sheet anything that says an HOA. So let me dig a little further and I'll call you back. Well, the agent had perfect explanation for everything, but I'm not who she should be explaining that to. If had that been explained well and often to the client, it wouldn't have happened. So make sure you over inform your clients of anything. So anyway, all right, so obviously see everything that's red, that's a required form. And Asha, to your question, the real estate commission has a certain amount of forms that, that's my daughter's favorite song when she was little. She used to call it the Nowini Watt song. So that's her ringtone. But anyway, the real estate commission wants to see all of these in a file. That's why we require them. Couple reasons. So if you have all of those files, when they say, hey, give us all you got, and you've got all of those documents, you're going to be in good shape.
For the most part, if somebody were to file a complaint, it's usually like within the transaction or just after.
It's
right?
usually just after.
Okay, because I'm like, if somebody filed a complaint 6 months later, I'm like, oh.
Oh, no, well, the one we have right now is probably 6 months later. Because what happened is then they went and replaced the flooring. Well, when you replace flooring, that does, and you find it's rotted underneath, you get all upset, but a home inspection is not going to show that. But if the buyer is already upset, that's it. That's the straw that broke the back. Now they're calling and throwing everything out there, and that's where that is. That's where.
Rare that it would be.
It's a little more rare, but, yeah.
So there's one like that right now for our office,
Mhm.
that circumstance.
Mhm.
It's not mine, right? 'Cause I have mine or same thing, I should have been able to see through the floor.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Just making sure.
And, you know, that's part of her complaint. That won't be part that the real estate commission will ding the agent about, but there's more in there that they will.
So there wouldn't be other signs that would. be-
Not really,
That's something-
no, because you can't, because they're not pulling all the, insulation down below, right? You know, and you're not looking above. You can only tell, ooh, it's soft, if it is,
Okay.
you know, so there's really no way to tell that your floors are really good. And you can get conflicting contractors' opinions. I had one, well, it wasn't mine, one of our agents had one. She decided to do a re-inspect. It was there was water damage under the shower in the master bedroom, right? The due diligence request said, you know, fix it and do quite a bit to fix it. They agreed. A contractor came out and said, nothing else needs to be done. They did a re-inspection of the house. And the inspector's like, well, nothing was done. It needs to be fixed. So then the two agents got in an argument about it. And then our agent said, okay, I can't deal with her anymore. I'm like, let me do it. You know, just step out. Let me take care of it.
Would that fall on the first contractor?
Not necessarily, because the first contractor said it's all fine. And he was signing off with his name and contractor number saying it's fine. The inspector said, no, it's not okay. So we got a third contractor out there and said, it's more than not okay, you know? So then the listing agent got everything done and got it all, you know. It was not her intention to hide it, you know, why would she think anything other than that the contractor wrote the letter and was standing behind it? So that's why I would say really encourage your people to have re-inspections if any repairs are being done.
So yeah, my very first real estate transaction, it was, you know, the window, like it needed to be replaced. So, you know, and that it was all agreed to and everything. Everything seemed fine. The re-inspect seemed okay because first of all, there hadn't been any rain. Second of all, there's no way to take the siding off underneath to look to make sure everything was done properly. So even the home inspector couldn't see that. Well, they moved in and then about 3 months later, we had a hurricane that had come through. And then the window was leaking.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out that the contractor that was there, that did the work, and we did the re-inspect, like everything, they didn't actually take the siding and replace the wall. So that at that point, like the whole wall had to be done. So she ended up having to take it to civil court and won.
So the due diligence said what?
The due diligence specifically said, I'm trying to remember, it said, replace window, may require wall, hold on. Replace all rotted wood around the window and under the seat, and under the window sill. May require removal of siding.
So the contractor who removed the window said nothing else was rotted and it
Yeah.
was fine.
Yeah. No siding was removed, like nothing, like there was no idea that could have been done. They just came in and replaced the window.
Interesting. So there you go. And she had to re-inspect and said it was fine.
Mhm.
So really, I mean, there's not 100% anything,
Yeah,
but you
but they
document.
did prove that, I mean, what with her and the court, she was able to prove that there was, the contract, this is what the contract stated, this is what was done. Obviously, this wasn't done because this is way more
Mhm.
way more damage than,
Than one storm.
yeah.
Interesting. But I would just say, hey, listen, get a re-inspection.
Melissa
done.
was actually, she helped me on that one because
Mhm.
where do you?
Did they go to the magistrate?
They went to, where they had to file was where the seller was living. So they actually took the seller and the construction company to court. And I think there was more to that because I think the construction company was advised by the seller to just do minimal. So they had that like messaging and then like eat something back and forth. And I don't know because I didn't go to court, but this is just what the buyer told me.
Interesting.
There's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Nope.
Man, it's just do the right thing and get you.
Yeah, minimal is never what you want to tell people to do
Do it right.
It's like I said, that falls back on.
because it comes back to you. Yes, and the
He's
seller.
one that told them what to do.
Uh-huh.
So the contractor had to go and replace everything and then they awarded the buyer damages from the seller.
Wow. All right, so of course you have to do a buyer agency if you are writing a contract, and you should do that before you go out and show houses if you're doing your buyer consultation. Is that what most people do? Or do you do it? Are you using that oral agency? You know, where.
We do working with real estate agents at initial contact.
Uh-huh,
And me personally, I won't, unless it's like if I go out and show houses or I do virtual showings, whatever, then I'll send out the agency, letting them know we're working together. But most of the time I send it out like when the offer goes out.
mhm. So thoughts on that, pros and cons, anyone?
Well, I do the same thing. I do the working with real estate agents, but I don't do buyer agency until I've actually been able to like have that, interacted and like show them houses. Is this a good fit? Because then if they sign agency, then they're like, well, we found another, like it just, I feel like sometimes it's pushy to have them sign agency right away before you start showing. So it just flows for me that way.
What does the 910 home sweet home do?
It depends on the client,
Mhm.
the relationship we have with the client.
The real estate commission wants you to sign a buyer agency right away. I would agree with you. I would do almost the same thing that you all do. You have to do it before you write a contract. It's got to be done. And it's got to be gone over. However, it's never a bad, some agents won't show people one house without it. If you met me, like Erin's saying, if I was and said, let's go see this house, and said, no, sign this first or I won't show you the house, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
What if I don't like you? I already don't like you.
but in today's market, you have to find out whether they even have the money to play the game. So you need to be meeting them now in this market
Right.
before you schedule 5 houses to see.
That's
You
true.
need to be having really difficult conversations, going over buyer agency.
At the
and then-
beginning.
Right. So you're
Right.
not wasting a bunch of time.
Because the whole point is you're setting expectations and informing your client. And if they don't have thousands of dollars for due diligence or something, they're gonna spin everybody's wheels and waste your gas.
Mhm.
So, no, I get that. So we used to never in this office, buyer consultation, please. Nobody did them. It was an email. You're like, oh, you wanna see? Okay, I'll meet you Friday at blah, blah, blah. However, like Karen said, I don't think that's a bad idea anymore because you used to have people that would get their earnest money back at closing the buyers, and spend nothing. That was very, very common. That is not the case anymore. So you really have got to educate your buyer on like what all it is.
Yeah.
And just emailing a buyer agency is not enough. You've got to go over it.
And that's the one thing that I was gonna say too on the buyer agency, because they may not want, dual agency or have anything to do with dual agency or anything like that. So they don't even want to see the firm's listings or, they don't want. your
Well, they don't
listing, or
understand what
like-
dual agency is
Yeah,
oftentimes.
So,
So if you are running a risk, if you're showing houses without having that discussion, now you can have it with your work now working with real estate agents, you now have to check which ones. Before you didn't, if they're buyer agents or they're okay in dual agency, it's on there right away now. So, but in this climate, I don't think you can be cautious enough. And you definitely need to tell your people, talk to your people about dual agency and make sure, because if they don't want it, you can't show them any of our listings. And then they don't understand why you didn't show them a listing, because they didn't understand the whole really clearly what dual agency is. So, and don't just send it to them and say, let me know if you have any questions. You've got to explain it to them. That
I
is
feel like
your
it hasn't
job.
really been as much of a problem lately, because right now it's kind of like, it's been like, it's a house.
Right, whatever it is.
What it
Who-
is, whatever it is.
who
let's
cares
get this
who
done,
listed
let's get
it?
this going.
Yes, red carpet, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, when I do the open houses, right?
Mhm.
When they come in to command, I usually set the appointment, usually within a day or two, to sit down with them
Uh-huh.
to go
Over the whole thing.
everything at one time.
Well, I have one couple who they take the professional services in their hand, that disclosure. And when you show them a house and they really like the house, or start going over it right then and
So,
go over it, because that is a really important one.
so I, actually, this really helps too, is that I have buyer packets and I have seller packets. And they have sample copies of everything.
Mhm.
Even the professional services disclosure, we talk about, what, like ahead of time.
Right, yeah.
Cause there's been things that have like come
Well-
up and it's just like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, well, I just think because what we spoke earlier, how easy it is to file a complaint nowadays, you have to be hyper diligent that it doesn't come to that. You never want them to be confused about something. So that is your job, is to inform them. And I really think the professional services disclosure, I think having that in your car, some blank ones that you go over with people, is a very good idea. Because that's one that's confusing. And if you want to know how to fill it out, I think we recorded the last class on that. I won't go into that again, but because it takes a while. But it's on they're all under the Facebook files on our Facebook page. So, all right, so then when would you need a confirmation of agency?
Oh, for
When would you need it?
the,
When there isn't, when there's like a for sale by owner, or if it's,
outside
if
of
it's
our
not,
house.
Yeah, they're not in our MLS.
yeah.
Or you're not in their MLS. If you're going up to the triangle and then good luck.
Or the triangle coming here and then the guy
And then
wants to be a
start
douchebag
listings
with
in our
me.
area.
And I asked him, where's I don't see my compensation of agency and fee agreement. No, I don't need one. You better check with your broker.
You do need one, buddy.
You're working.
So what you're saying is I don't need to compensate you. I can give the seller your money there.
And sadly it happens. Like Brian did compensate that guy. We have an agent from here, brand new agent, sold a house in Clinton. The other agent knew darn well what they were gonna do. And at closing refused to pay him because he wasn't in our MLS. Didn't make a dime. And I'm like, that's not how anybody should do business. I mean, I go by the golden rule, like you treat people.
Everybody's starting somewhere.
Oh, I got people that sit and visit here.
Uh-huh, exactly. I'll come back to him, but
But then again, like, it's a very, dog eat dog market out there too. They're gonna cut wherever they can, they're gonna,
oh, I'm sure that
you
agent
know,
took all
and it's
6%.
not, whether it's right or not, it's not right.
Right, exactly.
In our situation, we, is the buyer's agent, they wanted the seller to go above and beyond to accommodate this buyer and his inability to close the loan. So they brought additional money that was going to cover the additional payment. And this was non-refundable, and the problem was, it was put in as additional due diligence money. That was our fault, but, when it should have been just, here, you're gonna make the payment. Here's the money, make the payment. So they said, well, we're getting a credit back for the additional money. It was like, no, that's not how it was.
Yes.
You would, so he screwed up he screwed up, well, we screwed up, we both screwed up, but he didn't
Well,
get his buyer, didn't explain it to his buyer, say, look, you know what you were doing, we know what we were doing, they found a way to fight us back and they won. I could have been a knucklehead and said, well, that's okay, because now he's not, I'm only gonna charge him half of the commission because he doesn't owe you one, because we don't have your fee agreement. So you give him the 2,000, but you're not gonna get your 5,500.
yeah, he didn't like that. And, so I ended up on the phone with that gentleman and it was ugly.
It's
And,
so kind to call him a gentleman.
I said, you know what? I said, I can tell by your conversation, by what you are saying, you knew darn well where that additional money was and how it wasn't, and what it was meant, and that it wasn't meant to be for, credited back to your buyer. You have said that. And he's like, oh, I said, yeah, exactly. I said, you found a loophole, you're gonna use it. And here's the difference. We found one, but we're better people and we have higher professional standards. We're not going to enforce it, although we certainly could. I was like, I said, you know what? You're wrong, wrong, wrong. I said, and you know what? Brian is going to pay you. I'd be perfectly fine with not.
Wow.
So
Triangle, Brian.
It was.
it was the
They
triangle.
can stay up there.
Yes,
You just stay in their own spot,
you
and
know
stop
what?
putting listings in our area.
Look, if you guys wanna put in the remarks that outside the MLS be compensated 1.5, 2%, whatever, because you're gonna, hey, now I need the disclosures, hey, send me some comps, hey, send me this, send me that.
Right.
You know what, you're gonna earn it.
So Kathy McKnight, you know, she's like traveling around the world or around the country in her RV right now, sent me a message the other day that she met a KW agent in Oregon who they have people that are driving 2 hours, you know, selling outside and they don't know, just like here. And what they have started doing is putting in the realtor remarks, realtor must be present at all inspections. If not, compensation is dropped by 1.5%.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, I was like, that's interesting, you know, like, hey, if you're not there and you're not gonna represent your people, which we know you're not gonna do, then you're not gonna get paid.
They dropped it to what?
They dropped it to 1%. So you lose 1.5%. And that would discourage it a little. So. All right, so of course you have your working with real estate agents. This says signature page only, that's older, there it is 1 page now. Just remember when you do that, it says check all applicable, not just buyer agent. They need to know right away because they want you to have that conversation with, are you okay with dual agency? No, or would you like designated agency? So click it all on. And if they say yes to designated agency or any of the agencies, you've got to do our KW agency relationship disclosure. It explains it all to them. But so many people are like, well, I don't know. But I get it. People kind of gloss over all the disclosures and everything and want to just hear the offer to purchase. Like, and even now when there's so much urgency, like, 10 other people might write an offer. I gotta go, you know, yeah. You still need to explain to people because when it goes bad, you're who everybody's pointing at. Right, so additional provisions. It's required if it's on the contract. You know, so if you're not putting anything, obviously, you don't have to have it. FHA, VA addendum, same thing. If you've got an FHA or a VA buyer, you gotta have that. So what are a couple things about an FHA buyer that a new agent wouldn't know? What can't you buy?
On FHA?
Whip.
A flip.
Oh, yeah.
If a house has been flipped and the people don't own it, what, 3 months?
It's gotta be like 91 days. or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, I thought it was a year.
No. No,
Get
it's
right
only
to the 91st day.
91st day, you can't close. And
And
even
the
then,
deed has to be in the owner's name for 91 days.
uh-huh,
So if they go buy it and flip it in 30 days, they can't buy it with FHA.
Yeah,
If they flip it in 6 months, they can, but the deed has to be in their name for 31.
and these are just little things that you don't think about, right? You know, like you learn that the hard way. You learn that 2 days before closing. Oh, guess what? Or don't they still have to have like 2 appraisals if that's the issue? And
Yeah, with FHA, they still, no.
Yeah,
they
if it's
have to have a
flip.
second appraisal.
and your buyer's gonna have to pay for that. And we all know how long these things are taking these days.
The listing agent should know.
Right,
to put-
should,
Exclude that type of
Should.
financing in the,
yeah, but they just
But they
click
don't.
all forms.
yeah.
Yeah, all new loans, but they don't know either. So,
Yeah, I didn't know that until like 4 years ago when we had our first flip listing that the financing fell through because it was FHA. I was like, oh.
yeah, yeah,
So make sure I got it clear. If it's 91 days, that even if it's a flip, it still has to be appraised too?
no,
It doesn't matter. Any property to qualify for FHA has to be in the seller's, the deed has to be in the seller owner's name for over 91 days.
Yeah.
Randy wants to know about the
Only
2
one
appraisals.
appraisal.
no, not 2 appraisals,
No, but
And that would only be like. the
only if it's in that
properties, yeah.
win. So they have to have the 2 appraisals when, if it's in that time frame, and then they can close it on 91 days. I forget what that one is,
I don't know. I don't
but
know.
it was very expensive,
I've
very
not heard
expensive.
of 2 appraisals.
Yeah, it's a flip,
Let me find out on that.
I
yeah.
would like to do that.
Well,
Two
that's fine.
full appraisals or?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Now, it could change,
Just trying to get an appraisal right now.
right, right.
Trying to get 2 of them.
They may have, does anybody on Zoom know what the FHA appraisal rule is on a flip? Do you still have to have 2? No, we don't know. All right, we'll find out. But yeah. Lead-based paint, okay, when do you need that?
When it's built before 78.
Exactly. And so it's really clear if you haven't gone over something and you just sent it to them and they send it back. I got a lead-based paint this morning that checked everything, that they had been aware that they wanted an inspection and that they were waiving their inspection. Yeah, like, yeah, they initialed all 3 of them. Like you were supposed to choose one, you know? So clearly read it. And the the lead thing, it goes in cycles where they're really, lead-based paints, you know, like HUD gets upset about it. I don't know who's in charge of it. And then it'll just calm down.
Actually,
be-
it says here that the second appraisal on an FHA under 90 days is paid by the seller.
Well, see, your sellers should know that too, need to know that too, because they're not happy about that. Particularly those flippers that don't want to do anything,
Yeah.
Are
right?
they done at the same time or do you have to have, I guess they can both be ordered at the right.
I don't know. I don't know. Ask your lender or just stay away from something that's, if you're using an FHA buyer, if your buyer's using an FHA back loan, you need to do a little more digging on whatever it is that they're buying. And just make sure. If it's some sort of an LLC, you might want to look.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that has become, is going to be a big deal in this area, there's a lot, do you guys know about polybutylene pipes? No? Okay, so there's this grayish blue pipe plumbing that was very popular, what, in the 80s, is that when they put it on?
Probably been like PD.
And it was no problem here. There was, when I first started in real estate, it was polybutylene piping, yeah. But nothing had, like you saw, if you go online, you'll see houses like spurting, like, you know, water everywhere, like it's a sprinkler system. Well, nothing had really happened here. So you'd have to, people would be made aware of it, but that's it. Well, now it's 2021 and those old pipes, the problem that caused the bankruptcy for that manufacturer and everything, it's starting to happen. And houses here, the fixtures are breaking and they're just, Julie's house 3 days ago, her rental house erupted. guess what? They sent a picture. I was like, oh shit, that's that gray pump, that's polybutylene. So it's thousands of dollars. The insurance, the homeowner's insurance will not cover replacing the plumbing. They'll repair it, but they will not pay the multiple thousands of dollars to go in and replace all the plumbing.
Well, the problem is the fittings,
Doesn't-
right?
Right, but you can't just redo the
The
fittings.
fittings, yeah.
Yeah, so all of a sudden they just.
But sometimes you have those type of pipes with different kinds of fittings on it.
Right, so but the issue is, if you know you've got polybutylene, if it comes in on your home inspection for that buyer, you need to tell them, hey, there's been multiple lawsuits and lots of problems. It's not if, it's when you'll need to replumb this house. Are you okay with it? So you need to make sure that your people know what polybutylene is and what can go wrong with it. And if they search it on the internet, they'll run. And if you want to, if you're looking at houses and they're concerned about polybutylene, because it was a big deal in California. The houses, were just like sprouting water, squirting water everywhere. If you look it up, it'll scare any buyer to death. If you want to just quickly see what kind of plumbing, and you tell them it's not a for sure thing, you just look underneath the sink. And if those pipes are gray, it's a very good grayish blue, there's a very good chance it's a polybutylene in the house. Now, whether or not you'll get a seller these days to replumb the house, I don't know. However, it's considered common knowledge, and it's knowledge you need to have because you're the real estate agent. You have a home inspection, it'll be on there. So,
And our responsibility isn't to look any further than, say, looking under the sinks, right?
yeah, and you don't even have to have that, but you do need to inform your people that this is a known problem in the area and that houses built like in the 80s could have it. So.
Is there anything that we're supposed to have in writing, from them so that, they've been notified and they come back and say, well, nobody would told me, but you.
Well, if it's in your home inspection, and they chose not to do anything, there, you could show it right there.
Is there a specific year, with asbestos and stuff like we know?
I'm not
But
gonna
is there
know.
when did they quit using it?
In the late 80s.
Aren't they still using it?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. The people who made those pipes went bankrupt.
Yeah, there's class action lawsuits.
No, I mean, not the.
I've got,
the, asbestos.
Oh, asbestos. Oh, no, I don't think so.
It's encapsulated.
Yeah.
Or lead-based paint was what 1978. I was just wondering. if
78.
there was
We're in
a-
the bathroom during that part.
78 stopped that.
That's probably good match.
Yeah.
This was, I had a neighbor call me and said, hey, townhouse, your sign's in the yard and there's water coming out of the front door. The hot water heater was on the 3rd floor and the PV busted on the 3rd floor. So it took out the entire.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's a call you don't want to get. I had a listing in Gage 4 and it was snowing, right? And somebody went jogging by and said, hey, there's water coming down the front.
At least somebody
Halfway.
called and,
Yeah, so we went to the house, my husband and I went to the
Oh,
house.
yeah.
Water was just flying everywhere. A pipe had burst upstairs, kind of like that. That whole, oh my gosh. That's not a call you ever want to make.
That's just like that one perspective listing that was coming from Guardian. The one you.
Oh, right, the yard.
But it wasn't polybutylene, it was literally like, first of all, there was a pipe that busted, or no, the toilet, something, the connection to the toilet or whatever busted, and this was new construction.
That was just a bad builder.
Yeah, and the toilet came through the floor, ruined the floor, and then the pipe under the house busted and flooded the entire place.
Yeah, and it was a bad,
In the backyard with the grade canyon.
yeah, I was gonna say, and the grade was wrong, it's just a bad builder. So I don't think they're in business anymore.
No, they're not.
For good reason. All right, so let's see, where are we? Termination, obviously, you would know when you use that. Agreement to amend, you're probably gonna use that to extend the closing date these days or change the price. Professional services, obviously, you're gonna use that every time. And
What if there's a refusal to agree to amend on that date?
well, you're gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
But like the seller doesn't want to extend.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Will Martin, who said, just because the dates pass, if there is one, if someone is working diligently towards closing, it doesn't mean the contract is automatically terminated. So we had this just now, another agent talked to me about this because
It's
of
not 14 years anymore.
7
Yeah, that changed.
and July 1st. And even so that if that date comes and goes, if everybody, now your lender's gonna need it in writing, but it doesn't automatically terminate the contract.
So the transfer of funds, I think is what they needed in order to transfer funds. The amended date, contract date, so I'm running into that, that's why I was.
What are we talking about? Due diligence funds?
No, closing funds.
Oh,
People.
They need an updated date on the amended contract, amended contract date.
mhm.
Because if it's expired and it's got 7 days now,
The lender needs it?
yeah.
Yeah, see, the lender will need dates generally, but
What do
sometimes
you do in that?
you dance and talk to that seller, like, you explain to them, look, everyone's working towards it, and you tell them, like, just because the date has passed doesn't mean in the real estate commission's eyes that the contract is terminated. And if you would just sign this so the lender can move on,
Yeah.
we'll close it next week instead of you putting it on the market and starting over and going in down the road for 60 more days. Could you please explain that to your seller and get the signature to me right away, and we will move forward with this process.
Okay,
That's what I would say.
it's pretty much me talking to the seller.
Are you the listening? Get him to sign it.
No.
Well, you can't talk to the seller then.
They're calling me, that's the one I.
Doesn't matter. If they have an agent, they'll talk back to them.
I keep letting them know,
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
that's what I was asking, we'll talk.
You'll get in
about
trouble. You don't want to do that. All right, so confirmation of compensation, when do you need that?
Before you show the house.
If it's if you have a buyer agency, it's the 770, right? So you're on your buyer agency, you're saying you're getting 3%, right? Or 2.5 or whatever it is you're putting on there. If you're getting any more than that, then you have disclosed to your buyer, you've got to do the compensation, you've got to do an additional compensation. So now the buyer's compensation is fluctuating, right? The real estate commission doesn't care if you get paid less than what you have disclosed to the buyer. They do care if you're getting paid more. So I would suggest to you on your on your buyer agency, put 3%. If you get 2.5%, oh well. If you get 2.75, oh well. But if you put 2.5% and then you sell them a house that you're getting 3.5%, you need an additional compensation form. The buyer has to know what you're making. That's what the real estate commission, just remember that real estate commission is a consumer protection agency. It's not a real estate protection agency. They're not here to take care of you. They want to make sure that you've taken care of the client and that you have informed the client of everything, particularly where money goes.
What's the compensation form we get from listings from the triangle?
The confirmation of agency.
There's also, confirmation agency, fee agreement in there as well.
Yes.
but the newer agents are probably like, when in the world, what, get more? Tell me about that, grandfather. Back in the day.
Yeah.
builders used to give incentives.
Right.
Like, I got $8,000 for selling like a new construction home as a bonus.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Rodney Baker, like, they used to call me and be like, hey, this one, get ready to put a bonus on it.
Right, sell it.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh.
and you had to disclose that to the buyer. You can't just take, along with, like, if you get a referral, you were to disclose that referral fee to that buyer or seller as well. Everyone involved needs to know that money's being, changing hands. So, yeah, back in the day, remember those bonuses? Does new construction still do that? Like Kevin's and Gates used to have, yeah.
Matter of fact, they're not even, I think it's rare that they'll do like maybe 1% in closing costs.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, but
I
they
saw
used to
one
have
on
a
an
program,
existing home last week. I saw one last week on an existing home.
a bonus.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
How long had it been on the market?
Yeah, it'd have been.
Okay,
a couple
I've got
months.
one that's been on the market 22 days, which is like, what the hell? You know, I'll give somebody a bonus if they sell it. So, but it is, so, you know, they're talking about that you're seeing a slowdown of people buying, and nationally it's slow, the change, and locally it's typically quick, like it's overnight. You flip a switch and all of a sudden you've got days on markets again. So just watch for it.
Maybe someday we'll have caravans again.
I know, because I was like, it will be worth, like, now there's no point. I thought about it the other day. I was like, there's no point. They're
That was
sold.
each other's pending listings for, you know, just
But it's
for.
so
For back.
beneficial for the new agents to go on caravan. They learn so much from
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I
You can
agree.
like point stuff out and, you know.
Mhm.
Or as
I
we
learned a
like
lot
to
on
call it,
caravans.
the Welcome Home Team Wednesday tour.
Something I learned is that coming soon counts as days on market.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh,
yes, it does.
I didn't know.
And you can't change it.
No.
All right,
What
so
do you do?
charter title, do you understand what that is?
Yeah.
You have to do, again, money's made, people need to know. And charter title, I have some ownership in charter titles. Keller Williams has ownership in charter title. So therefore the buyer or the seller needs to be made aware if charter title is
So
being
if we're not
used.
using charter title,
Shame on you.
I'm just asking, if we're not, does it have, you know?
But you don't really know that when you're writing when you're writing the offer and the disclosure, so go ahead. Though it's title insurance, it's like any other insurance, it's basically set by the rate is set by the state. So it's not like you're charging them any more than they could shop around and get somewhere else.
So, just to clarify this in my mind, single source is separated from charter title.
It is completely separated.
Okay, so we can use charter title, but not single source.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
And if you
the-
don't
the
use
buyer
single
can
source-
choose their title
Yeah.
insurance. So, and if you're putting on a professional service disclosure, charter title, and they're acknowledging that, and then they go to close at McCoy or somewhere else, and that's not their. Most of your attorneys, whatever, are gonna have an interest.
Yeah.
In the title company,
Mhm.
but that they're selling.
But they're not supposed to. It's supposed to be at least an arm length difference, right? So somehow they're attorneys that figured a way for it. They're not supposed to have it down.
So it would be up to you to verify that they're using.
So you can send a request. So they've taken the title insurance off of professional services. I don't know why, but also, and that lenders a lot of times have their own title insurance, and Movement used to have its own until we're like, no, if you want to stay in this office, you take that off, and use our title insurance. So that's what that is,
It has a blank on there that I don't understand.
right? It says witness or something.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I always have the client
Just where you
sign right
sign
there.
it, just sign it
Yeah.
there.
That's what, no, I always have the client sign.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so key release, you know why that's important?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want
And then you have
anyone,
to keep telling them throughout the contract. because, you know, they'll forget.
Right, and you need, and then you need to have them sign it so that when they're at closing and they're like, what? I don't get the keys? Look, remember we had this discussion and you signed it right here and this is what we said, you
But
know.
I'm leaving right here to meet the cable guy.
The U-Haul is in the parking lot with my dog and everything else. Remember we had that discussion and I understand there's nothing, you know, you just gave a lot of money, so it feels like you should get the keys. And I'm right with you. However, it is the law and we're not gonna break the law and it is not in your best interest to get these keys because so many things can go wrong and actually have gone wrong. And so I know it's a pain, but I will call you the second you can have that key. But that's a lot easier conversation at the beginning of the contract than it is when you're sitting down there in the closing and they've got.
Always reiterate it when I said, yeah, well, I'll see you at 9 o'clock closing on Tuesday morning. Remember, that doesn't mean that the house belongs to you at that appointment. We have to wait for the deed to record when I give you your key.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't say it enough because people will live. I've sold 1 million houses and the keys have always come right to me. Okay. Times change.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I bought and sold houses all my life. I don't use the keys.
I just gave you $15,000 and I've got nothing. Yes, you're right. You're right. I totally sympathize with you. Doesn't feel right. But remember, we had
Ask
this
them,
conversation.
like, how would you feel if I gave you keys right now and you go in there and a fire breaks out? The house is technically not yours yet until the deed records. You know, then you're responsible. Do you want to take on, you just bought a house, do you want to take on a new homeowner's insurance claim the day you move in?
Well, not only that, they won't pay
They
it.
won't pay it. You don't have a house yet.
Mhm.
And, you know, usually when you put it into perspective, they're like,
Exactly.
they're frustrated, but they back off a little.
Speaking of that, Shantae should be getting a new apartment this week.
Really?
So we will be like in
House
furnishing mode.
Yeah.
So, and then septic permit. If you can't find a septic permit anywhere, what do? What is plan B for a septic? You know, you have you're not gonna go inspect it. I mean, well, you can, but what else? What is another way to find out?
I've gotten, like, sometimes, people to like, oh, the agent has known when the last time it was pumped. Like, if they have any receipts or anything, when it was pumped, if not. I
When it's
write
pumped,
something out.
They don't necessarily tell you how big it is.
Right.
Right? So according to the real estate commission, if there's nothing on file, right? So it goes back so long ago, they're not sure how big of a tank was put in. For example, we have one in Red Springs right now, discovered, the listing agent said it was sewer. It is not sewer, it's septic. The listing agent said it's 4-bedroom. We found a septic permit, says from 1974, says it's 3-bedroom, but it's got no indication of the address of the house or anything. I'm not quite sure how they even put it together. Nonetheless, okay, so the listing agent, well, I don't think that's where I went. Okay. The next thing you do is you check the tax records and you verify with the tax records how many bedrooms the house is. So you can go, it is reasonably assumed that the tax has the right amount of bedrooms and they've been taxed. And when it was built, the septic was put for the right size. So that is what the real estate commission says to do. If you cannot find any record, you go to the tax.
And we have them, our buyers sign that. How do we verify?
Right,
that
so
they
then you
know?
show it to them. So for this particular case, it's a 4-bedroom. The septic says 3. So it's like a big family. So they need to sign like in 10 places that, hey, look, this is, print that tax record, you know, because on Realist, it actually says tax, bedrooms, 3, MLS 4. You could just have them sign right there, you know, that they have been made aware of this and they understand that the septic system may not handle a 4-bedroom house, that it's built for a 3-bedroom. So that's better than nothing at all. So this is another flip, you know, so no one really lived in the house, right? So the seller's like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I just find it. Yeah, you're calling this a 4th bedroom now, and it's not. So, but all you can do is inform everyone and document it, and then let your buyer decide. Like the buyer's like, I don't care, we still want the house. I'm like, well, make sure that's written somewhere, you know? So this agent is gonna have the attorney draw something up that says, we're taking it and we're taking responsibility for it. Because you overwhelm a septic system, you got a mess. All right. This needs to be done because they are in DocuSign forms, the KW disclosure for buyers. It is in there. So that's just another, you know, you need to, it reminds you as well as your buyer that, hey, there may be covenants and you need to look at them, because covenants do govern a lot more than fences. You know, you can move into a neighborhood and find out that the covenants don't allow their beloved dogs because they're on the insurance list. That you need to know. You know, like some of them, most covenants will say you can have like 2 domestic animals, you know, and they don't say anything. But some will actually go down and list aggressive breeds and say, no, they can't be here. Well, if your buyer, they just bought this house and their dog is like their child, you got a huge problem, because that was your responsibility to know. So covenants are something you shouldn't take lightly. You need to look them up. And if you don't know how to look them up, let me know and I will show you. I can do a loom on that and show you how to do it. It's very simple. So then also, the other thing on that disclosure is important is that school assignments can change.
They're redistricting right now.
Yeah.
They're not redistricting right now.
Yeah, see, you don't know. If they're buying a house because it's in Jack Britt and there's rumor that Jack Britt's changing, you know about it, or you should know about it if it's out there. You're even if you haven't watched the news or read a newspaper or anything, you are still responsible if that's public knowledge. So
where do I find this public knowledge?
right.
It's
I
on the
homeschool, man, I don't
school
keep
district's
up with
website. So the school district's website,
Mhm.
Cumberland County Schools website, or whatever county you're in, like.
Yeah, but you can do Find My School and it'll tell you what it is districted at the moment. But if there is
That's
chatter
on the-
about that it's going to change, you better let them know that there's chatter that's going to be redistricted.
Right now, like TC Varian is rerouting their students to like other schools, and I don't know how that's working out, but.
And the other thing is, you know, Cumberland County has school of choice. Are you all familiar with that? So school of choice, if it's a school, if it's a participating school, because not all are, a buyer can do an application to get their child into that school.
And
And
there's
if-
application dates and deadlines.
Yeah, that's all on the real estate website. I mean, on the Cumberland County Schools. And then different schools do different things. And if there's space in that school, they may or may not accept the child. So it's not, and then if your child goes to a school of choice, you are committing to be the transportation or provide transportation for them. There's not going to be a bus for you. So, but if they really want a house that's, you know, in Cape Fear, but they really want their child to go to 71st Classical Middle School, it's doable if they get into the school of choice. Don't tell them, oh, you can just apply, it'll be no problem, because you don't know. But if they're interested in the school of choice program, you should know about it. And you should be able to tell them. You know, like at New Century, they teach the kids Chinese.
Yeah.
At Glendale, they have a Spanish immersion there, don't they?
Spanish,
At Howard Hall. Isn't it Howard Hall that does the Spanish? What's
they-
across from
but-
Pine Forest? Pine
Pine
Forest High,
Forest Middle,
huh?
but Pine Forest, oh,
High school.
Howard Hall. Oh,
Okay, that's a Spanish immersion.
Yeah,
Yeah, so your kid could go there, and for the first 3 years, they're taught nothing but Spanish. So there's a lot of very interesting,
there's another school too, that's Chinese immersion too.
that's New Century. And then there's Jack Britt has an engineering something or other, but good luck getting into that.
And then Pine Forest has all the career training programs.
Right.
So it depends.
So these are things that your buyers would want to know, and you should know them. Okay? So in the MLS, on the day of your offer, we want a copy of that MLS in your command. Do you know why? Because if something is offered, like say the buyer agent MLS compensation is 3%, right? On the day you wrote that offer.
And then they go in and change it.
Then, yeah, so you made a nice copy of it on the day you wrote the offer, put it in the file. Then when they go to close, they're like, oh no, it's only 2.5. You're like, what? It said in the MLS, you go pull up the MLS, it says 2.5. It's been changed. Unless you have a copy dated that date, you have no way to show that. And also it could say, the refrigerator is going as a gift, right? And then they're like, no, it's not. And you're like, yeah, you had it in here as well, not there, you know? You need to be able to show what was offered.
I threw a little thing on it again, but if you're doing something that's not on the MLS, the confirmation compensation form will work for that.
It absolutely will. And obviously your contract is going to override anything that's on the MLS. It just helps your
Yeah.
argument.
And you sell that, you send that to the listing agent?
You don't have to, you just have to keep a copy of that in your file. So you put that in command.
We were talking this morning about refrigerators and hot tubs and sheds and all of that, carpet allowances. All of that has to be in writing on an offer to purchase too.
No,
It just has to be written on the MLS and you're
No.
good.
no, read the contract changed a couple of years ago, and now that has specified items. All of that is included in the specified items. You no longer have to
The
list.
fixture list.
Yes, you no longer, well, it's fixtures and specified items.
Okay.
You no longer have to list that as personal property. You did years ago, now you don't. It is part of that whole list.
Refrigerators.
Refrigerator, no, but every shed, yes. I
Shed,
mean,
storage building. yeah.
shed, storage building, garage door openers, all of that. So read that, it's in the listing agreement and it's in the contract.
Okay, you're saying it does not need to be listed on the offer to purchase.
No, it already is.
It is.
It already is there.
So my question is, we were talking about this in great length this morning.
Mhm.
If a seller is offering a home warranty or, I don't know, something special.
But that's not a specified, that's not an item that goes with the house. And home warranty is not. Look, so
Okay, so
Are you looking for the document?
here, look
those
on
sheds
page
that can be.
4, doesn't matter. Specified items, look on page 4.
Okay.
Alarm, security system, stove, built-in appliances, antennas, satellite dishes, basketball goals, play equipment, ceiling fans, fireplace, fuel tanks, garage door openers, generators, invisible fences, landscaping, mailboxes, mirrors that are attached to the wall, storage shed. It's in the contract.
So anything that they're giving as a gift, maybe a washer and dryer,
Right,
something
that's
like,
different.
There's also a spot for them to include that on the MLS,
Yes.
but I would still ask for it.
Yeah, I would put, if it's
Refrigerator,
not,
If they said refrigerator, washer, dryer, or gift, I would still put it in the personal property.
Right, and that's what we were talking about this morning.
right
Do
here
you
on
really
page
have any
5.
Way of protecting yourself if it's not on the contract? With
You
a
don't.
refrigerator, washer, dryer, things like that.
Those three, that's it. Everything else, yes, it's already written here.
That would, yeah.
But
So,
the,
yeah, I
but those
understand that.
gifts, but see, you'll see people that write garage door openers, smoke alarms. You don't need to do that. Storage shed. I had an argument with another BIC about a house that the storage building, they want to make sure, it went. And she's like, well, you didn't write that in personal property. I'm like, the contract changed a few years ago. You don't have to put that, like, it's already here.
I didn't realize shed was.
Yes.
Need to read of them. Everything else. makes sense to
Thermostat.
me.
So if they have a Nest thermostat and they want to take that with them, they need to change that out before they put the house on the market. So to eliminate those issues, that's why they put this all here, because it makes sense that garage door openers are with the house. But then people drive away with them and like, well, we're not contractually obligated, we're not gonna send it back,
Or a lot of them have
Yeah.
a cars program that don't have the.
Uh-huh. And they don't know where they are, right? So
Well,
your
don't go with it
spa,
no more.
hot tub, all of that is already on here. So, if you put it here as personal property, it's redundant.
Yeah.
Again, some of them don't come with the remotes no more.
Right.
So what do you do in those situations? I mean, I know because I put them in, the kids don't come with remotes,
Right.
they're all. for-
Well, and that's if there are any. If there none exist, there's none to give. You
So
know,
they won't come back and balk, well, you didn't leave the remotes, no, don't have it.
yeah, because they don't exist. That's
Yeah.
all you do. So, when you do, the buyer agent goes and buys a universal one. It makes them happy.
So some of them don't even use the little.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Some of them are, they're Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
So, here, the blinds, all of that, the curtain rods, it's all in here. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If there's a water pump system, like a reverse osmosis, it's already in here.
Oh, really?
It's written
If
right
you
here.
see one of those big canister reverse osmosis pipe or water filtration systems in a house, make sure there's no lien on it.
Oh.
I mean, the seller will be responsible for it, but they may try, I don't know, it just could cause problems down the road.
It could slow down if they don't
Make
have
sure it's
enough
been
equity.
paid for, that they're actually gonna leave it behind.
Do I need to ask for paperwork?
Just ask them if it's been paid
Like,
for.
Is it paid for?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's all. So the other thing that's caused problems down the line are solar panels.
That's a huge one.
Big ones, like, I plan on living here forever. I spent $25,000 on solar panels. Now I'm leaving. How much is that? How much are those going to be worth? Well, not much, bud, because no one else has done it. So, your appraisal only goes to the value of the one next door. Then nobody else has it. It's going to be a hard sell to get much of a value for it. And it was. And those people ended up having to pay off to sell solar panels and then sell their house. I think they owed 25,000. They got maybe 5,000 of value for it. It's kind of like a pool, right? A pool does not add value to your house. It may add sellability, but it's not going to add much value. The only reason you're putting a pool in is because you like it. All right, anything else? I think we've gone on long enough, an hour and a half, plenty of droning on, sorry about that.
Appreciate it.
No,
No.
you're-
Can I ask a question? This is Andrea. So I have a client that we're doing it's a seller and we're trying to list their property, and they were a little skeptical about doing VA financing because they feel like you know, it may come back a little less, so they were gonna cut it out, but of course, they were gonna cut out marking the VA financing as, you know, acceptable. But of course, they're gonna miss out on a lot of individuals in this area, so we opted to do the appraisal addendum. And I don't have the form with me, I'm kind of out and about, but I wanted to ask, where you put the number in the blank,
Mhm.
I'm a little confused as to what you're putting there, because the way I see it is, it's saying that you're willing to go up to a certain number, but no more than the list price. So how do you determine?
Not,
Don't
no,
know.
it's not no more than the list price, it's no more than the agreed upon contract price. So if your house is listed at 250 and you had multiple offers and someone offered 255, with a $5,000 appraisal contingency, then the most that that buyer's gonna pay is 255.
Okay.
No,
Oh, okay.
55.
Does that make sense? So if it comes in, the buyer, okay, so I'll tell you one exact, I had one. It was listed at 250, got an offer of 260 and a $5,000 appraisal contingency. The appraisal came back at 255, so the buyer paid 260 but had to pay 5,000, and they actually had a $10,000 appraisal contingency, so they paid 260 like they planned. They had to bring 5,000 out of pocket, not 10. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So a seller is not doing the appraisal.
No, the buyer will. The buyer.
does, okay.
The seller's gonna accept one that they're okay with.
Okay, so is it smart to accept VA? I mean, I think it is, as far as VA financing, they're just worried about that. So should we eliminate that altogether or just do it and take it as it comes?
If you wanna eliminate like 85% of your potential
know.
buyers, you can eliminate it.
know. Right, that's what I was trying to tell you.
And I'm not
This is a
seeing-
military town.
You guys I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference in the VA or the conventional appraisals. So I don't think that would be, it wouldn't be. If they're worried about it, tell them that to negotiate any appraisal required, mandated, or repairs are paid for by the buyer when you write the contract. And then also get the appraisal contingency to an amount that your seller's okay with.
Okay, so just make sure I put in there that repairs, I mean, they're willing to do some repairs if necessary, but I advise them, like, let's just wait and see.
I would wait, Andrea, I wouldn't put anything in the MLS about it. I'd wait to see what your offers come in. Negotiate then.
Okay,
Okay,
that's what I need. I appreciate it. Thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else? No? All right, well, have a great day.
Thank you.